Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos and its expansion, The Frozen Throne, have earned their place as one of the best strategy games of all time. This was due to the compelling storyline, the well-designed characters, the balanced gameplay, the online multiplayer, and just so much more. So today I'm going to talk to you about whether or not Warcraft 3 Reforged, here 20 years later, the remaster of this insanely good classic game, is worth playing in 2023. So let's start with just a little bit of history. And when the original game came out, Blizzard could not really go wrong. They were riding on the high of Diablo 2. Warcraft 3 was really revolutionary for me. Maybe the only RTS that is better than it could be the other game that they made at the similar time, which would be StarCraft. Warcraft 3, however, for me, had a ton of replayability, the strategic depth that multiplayer had, with the addition of heroes with spells and powers, the 4 different races, the great support from the Battle.net system. This really stood it out as a leader in multiplayer games back in the day. There's so much more to tell you about why classic Warcraft 3 was a brilliant game, what with its consistent balance patches, the interesting dynamics between the races, the extensive mod support and the many custom games that came out of it, and also the 96% IGN gave it on the user score. We could go on and on about how classic Warcraft 3 was a great game. What I'm asking today is, Warcraft 3 Reforged worth buying in its current incantation? Is it going to get better based on the fact that there has been some activity in the Warcraft 3 community with patches over the last year? And I'm going to break down like 10 different areas of the game, and I'm going to talk about each one and whether or not it's in a good state or what the future actually looks like it's going to hold. So buckle up, thanks for being here. If you do get some value out of today's video, please consider hitting that like button. I am a newer channel, and every like or subscribe does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. So let's get right into it. So Reforged was announced around 2018 with a release date of 2019, almost 20 years from the original launch. They had a cinematic trailer that was basically a remake of the original cinematic for the game that looked very good, and they also had a gameplay trailer showing the upscaling of numerous characters within the game coming back with like 4K graphics, and you're able to play the game on a much higher resolution. You can see much more of the map. So on the surface, everything looked swell. But as soon as players got the game into their hands, they realized the elephant in the room was that the launch had significant backlash. The game basically wasn't finished, very similar to what happened with Overwatch 2. Key features were missing, like very core key features, and a bunch of the stuff that was promised, such as like expanded cutscenes, expanded lore, new missions, expanded missions. It was all just cut, and what we got was a shell of what was promised, but most people paid the full price. Many people did refund the game. Maybe I'm an idiot, probably I'm an idiot. I kept my copy. Warcraft 3 was one of my most favourite games. In fact, it probably was the game that got me into World of Warcraft, because I didn't really like MMOs all that much back then. So for me, I kept my copy. I've played it here and there, and 3 years on now we're getting some updates. So this video is all about that. Let's start by talking about the state of the graphics. There has been literally no work on the graphics since this game came out. A lot of the professional players, or the more serious players from back in the day, still use the classic graphics. I do not use them because they have about 5 polygons, and I cannot handle playing games with that shitty graphics. They're probably, maybe shit is the wrong word, they're dated. They're very dated. You know, it's like if you go back and play a PlayStation 1 game, part of my enjoyment is like eroded by the fact the graphics are so bad. However, I guess if you want to be competitive, if you want to be good at the game, you kind of have to use the old graphics, because the new graphics have so many issues. There is some minor improvements, like you can use the camera a little bit better, you can zoom out, but overall I don't think there's any hope that the graphics are going to get improved or changed. I think if they were going to do anything, they would have at least started on it or showed us something. So you've got your original graphics, the 2002 graphics, or you've got the badly put together Reforged graphics. For such a game that was so important with like competitive play, it seems a very strange decision that they would outsource. That's the story I've heard, that they outsourced all the graphics for the remaster, and as such they just didn't quite keep the level of intricacy that competitive players needed. They did also upgrade the audio in the game, but honestly, I haven't really noticed any difference between the old and new. There is some new voice lines, there's maybe some cleaner voice lines, but audio I don't think was ever an issue in Warcraft 3. Like, I don't remember ever playing the game and saying, like, hey, the audio in this game is not good. So overall, I think graphically we're in a pretty poor state. I guess if you want to, it's up to you. The graphics aren't improving. They haven't been improving. I don't think they're going to improve. Alright, what's next? So next I want to talk to you a little bit about the patches that we've had over the last year. There has been a few additions. Clans got added, but let's face it, the UI for clans, recruiting clans, stinks. They did ladder updates in that, like, you can view other players' profiles. Half the time it doesn't work. If it does work, you still can't add your friends or people you've played with as a friend. It's just generally bad. I don't know how it still can't work. It's been live for probably almost a year at this point, and it's still broken as all hell. A bunch of times your games still do not record, so you spend the time winning the game, losing the game, whatever, they just don't get recorded. They've tried to fix this so many times now, like it's been mentioned in like 3 or 4 patches. So I would say the game is in better shape than launch. A few features have been added. But I think probably where we were when they added the ladder like a year ago, we've definitely lost some of the player base. And it's not surprising when 9 months later they still can't fix the most basic of issues, like right-click view profile. It should probably just view that player's profile, right? Like, the people that have been doing the patches, again, from what I've heard, is a third-party company doing these patches. And I think they're being directed to certain things or certain systems or certain features, and they're not being given like a full like scope of like, hey, this thing is broken, you should just fix it. It's more like, hey, we want this new feature in the game because we think that maybe this feature will sell more copies or something, and the priorities are just all over the place. And also patches are, they don't really tell us about the patches until the patches are basically on the test server, and then it's almost too late, and they're out, and they're buggy. So while we are getting some improvements, it's not good. I don't think anyone has managed to open up any sort of dialogue with the developer. The forums are very quiet from like developer posts. Occasionally they might post like, hey, this is bug fix, but that's about all you're going to get. So while this is better than launch, there's so much more to be done here. I would say that this part of the game is... It's hard to complain when we had no patches for 3 years, so maybe they've set the expectations so bloody low that we're just happy that we get anything, but overall, like, I can't really give it more than like a 5 out of 10, and the fact that we're getting some patches, I guess, is okay. Next up, I think it's worth talking about the single player for a moment. Similar to Overwatch 2, I said this already, what was promised for the single player was cut down to a fraction of what we got. We basically got like a reskin version of the 2002 game. Even after BlizzCon, they showed us some much better levels and maps and features that might be coming. Who knows where that ended up on the cutting floor, but who knows. I think, if I had to guess, I think this is kind of what's happening with EA maybe, in that like, the game gets given a budget, and they make it too big a scope, and then when they realize like late in the day, hey, the scope's too big, rather than just say like, hey, we're Blizzard, you know, we can probably afford to delay this game for a year and put it out in a great state, they just put it out, sort of crossing their fingers like, hey, we know it's kind of shit, but we hope people won't care or won't buy it, and guess what happens? People do care. And some of them obviously don't buy it because it's shit. So what we've had over the last year, there was like basically since the game came out in 2019, let's say there was 2 years where there was no patches. Now we've had like 1 year of patches, and what we've had is the tiniest little semantic things. One dev, I think it's literally one dev, has gone back into some of the levels and renamed some of the NPCs. Like, I forget the names of them exactly, but if you ever played Wrath of the Lich King, the dungeon, Halls of Reflection, I think in that dungeon they like retconned 2 of the bosses in the first room as like Arthas's right-hand man, I think, or right and left-hand men, I guess. In the original Warcraft 3, where they were literally just footmen, and then they got given names in World of Warcraft. Well, I think they've gone back and they've given those footmen the names that tie it all to World of Warcraft, and that was the whole plan. That was the plan for this game, was to integrate it more with World of Warcraft, build Warcraft lore out, build out a better story. arguably you could have literally sold this game to every single player, old or new, that played World of Warcraft if it was good enough. What's that famous quote from the Nintendo guy where it's like, a rushed game will forever be bad, but a delayed game will eventually be good. That's literally it's so true here. So we've got one dev who I think has actually left the project now. He had like 1 month, maybe, as they were killing everybody from the project, to make some tiny little semantic changes, and he posted about them on Reddit, and to his credit, at least the guy was passionate, at least he cared, at least he did something. But what we've got now is just a single player campaign as is. There's no change apart from bug fixes, and they literally only fix them if it's like, hey, you just can't complete human campaign level 3, then they actually have to go in and fix that because people spam the forums like, hey, this campaign map is broken. So occasionally that's the only fix we're going to get to the campaign. There is a guy on I think it's Twitter, who's been doing where he's calling the Reforged campaign, and I found out about this from one of Grubby's videos. It's also available on Hive Workshop, so if you want to Google Reforged Hive Workshop, you'll be able to find it. And this one solo guy, similar I guess to what happened with Classic WoW, this one passionate solo guy is going back and he's rebuilding all the missions with like better camera angles, you know, more dialogue, whatever. He's rebuilding them all out. I've been meaning to check it out. I have 2 young children and never get time to do what I want to do, but I've been meaning to check it out. And from what I understand, it's actually pretty good. A bunch of people have covered it, and he has finished now, I believe, the Scourge of Lordaeron, which is the first campaign, the human campaign. If I was Blizzard, I'd hire the fucking guy and just get him to do all of it. I don't know why they're not doing that, because there was problems there for a while where you can't even link custom scenarios together in a campaign. You would have to play them one at a time and like load each mission, and it would kind of remove some of the sort of like flow of playing through the campaign. I don't know. It's a mess. Props off to the one guy that's doing it now. Maybe he's got a team. Last thing I heard, I think it was just one guy. So the single player campaign, the actual one that's in the game, is like basically no changes, but you may be able to play the Reforged campaign. You may be able to enjoy that. So that's where single player stands at the moment. So again, it's I guess the original single player campaign was pretty good. So I guess you will, like, if you play through the single player campaign, it's probably pretty good. It's probably pretty dated in that it's 16 years old, but it's not a bad campaign. It's just really sad that they put our expectations up here. Same as Overwatch 2, they gave us super high expectations and they literally delivered none of it. So if you can get over that, then you can probably enjoy the campaign if you're willing to spend the money and buy the game. If we talk about community and multiplayer, queue times for the official ladder are okay. They are getting a little bit longer. Again, a lot of people are probably getting frustrated that the updates are just a mess. There is lots of problems with the official ladder, and again, some guy has built a third-party ladder called Warcraft 3 Champions, which is apparently better than the official ladder. I haven't installed it because I'm a bit wary about installing third-party software on my computer. I feel like this is a full-price Blizzard game. I should be able to put the game in the CD tray. Hyperbole, because I guess you don't buy games on CDs anymore, but hyperbole, put the game in the CD tray and play the game on Battle.net without having to download a million different mods. I guess you download mods in other Blizzard games, but when I played Battle.net many years ago, you put the CD in, you played the game. That's how I want to play it. I don't want to have to mess around with third-party stuff. But again, it sounds like why Blizzard haven't just hired that guy and said, like, here's a code for the official ladder, we know it's a mess, why don't you just fix it? And apparently that guy's even working on a reconnect. So like when your game gets disconnected or your game crashes to desktop, which does happen. I have a crazy good rig. I bought it for video editing. I have another YouTube channel with like plus 10,000 subscribers. So I need a good rig for video editing. So my rig is literally like, I don't know, like an i9 with like 64 gig of RAM, a 3090. There's loads of SSDs in there. It's a crazy good rig. This 20-year-old game just crashes to desktop sometimes. I don't even know how can it be a memory leak? I've got 64 gigs of RAM. Anyway, yeah, so there's no reconnect in the official one. The UI in the official one is so friggin' bad. I've made a video about this before. I've talked about it before. Like, it feels like the UI in the Reforged or the Reforged client. I don't even know if it was made by like a junior UI artist. I feel like it was made by an intern who'd never done UI. Be like, something, just pull this guy in from the street. You want to intern at Blizzard? Sure. Have you ever done any UI? No. Cool. You're doing the Warcraft 3 Reforged UI. Go! Because, like, honestly, the UI from 2002 is just so much better. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to chat. All the chat rooms are dead. I wish I could get like I wish they would have like spoke to some people about this. This was my favorite game. This is why I'm making this video. This is why I'm so passionate. Anyway, I would say the one blessing is the community is pretty friendly. Most people say hello, GG, have fun. I mean, if they'd made the way of talking to your teammates better, like after a game, then it might have actually been very easy to make friends, and that would have helped the community a ton. But of course, none of that is there. So the community is generally nice and friendly. Just the UI absolutely stinks. Like it's a 3. It doesn't. You know what? Like the UI is a 3 out of 10 for me, but because it doesn't load half the time, it's like a 2 out of 10. It's the main issue with this. They didn't need to change any of that. It was 110% better in the classic client. I don't know how that design meeting went, right? Where it's like, you're looking at the new UI and the old UI, surely somebody senior looked at that and went, this stinks. And they went, yeah, sure, we launch it anyway. It's beyond me. Honestly, it's so far beyond me. So we also have to say that Warcraft 3 spawned one of the greatest like subgenres of video games that we've ever seen, which is basically multiplayer online battle arenas. The original, what is it, Defense of the Ancients, or Dota as it was later abbreviated to, the acronym, came as a mod from Warcraft 3, and from that we got Heroes of Newerth, we got League of Legends, we got Dota 2, we got Heroes of the Storm. I actually loved Heroes of the Storm, I played that game a lot. But anyway, we got all these games from the great and powerful like map editor that Blizzard made way back in 2002. I'm sorry to say that the map editor hasn't had much love, and as of such, like, the custom games still need a bunch of really janky things. If you've ever played like Dota 2, because Heroes of the Storm doesn't have items, but if you've played Dota 2, you know yourself, in Dota 2 all the items that you buy for your hero are basically in like one nice condensed shop panel. It's very simple. New players, you know, it's simpler. Dota 2 is actually an incredibly complicated game, but it's simple enough that like you would press B for buy or shop and you would see a bunch of items. In the Warcraft 3, I tried playing some Dota. I actually thought when they launched this, I was like, oh, I wonder if Dota 2 will have to worry about, you know, Dota being a custom map again in Reforged. Disclaimer, they don't need to worry at all. Dota and Reforged is a fucking disaster. It's absolutely terrible. I played it once and was like, oh my god, this is so terrible. But like, all the items that you need are still on like 18 different vendors all over the place, and I'm supposed to remember that from 2002 because they couldn't just, I guess they didn't have the tools when they remade Dota in the Reforged to just make a nice bag system like Dota 2 has. So custom maps and mods are still getting made. Again, the UI for it is really bad. I mean, it's getting laughable at this point, because there's still so much bad in the game. There's no reconnect. Did I mention that? That's really great. You know, when you've played a custom game for 45 minutes and your computer just randomly crashes, there's no getting back into that game. Yeah, so the mod, I mean, credit to the people that are still making the mods, and a bunch of the old maps do work, and you can still play them. Just it feels like Blizzard gave these guys they gave this system no level of effort. I guess they put the effort into the rich single player experience, and we know how rich it ended up being when it actually launched. So if we start closing this video out to some sort of overall assessment, we know it was a rocky as hell launch with initial disappointment. So is it worth playing Warcraft 3 Reforged in 2023? I heard that there was a survey that went out about this, and I put some of the questions behind me while we're talking here. So it sounded like Blizzard were somewhat interested in what the community felt about Reforged. But overall, I don't know. My understanding now is there's a third-party team working on it, but they don't have either the scope or the budget or the creative freedom to fix it. So what we're getting is this sort of Frankenstein of half-broken patches, systems that are just not quite there. Not terrible, but not quite there either. If you are a fan of the Warcraft series, enjoy RTS games, you're interested in the campaign, maybe the multiplayer or some of your old custom maps, is it worth playing? I guess yes. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't enjoying it. Since the ladder relaunched like a year ago, I have almost 1,000 games, possibly more than 1,000 now. So if you imagine each game is 20 minutes, I have played like a metric ton of it. Overall, for me, I would say it's maybe like a 6 out of 10 in its current state, whereas I think the original game was damn near perfect, closer to 9, maybe even 9.5, maybe even a 10. Like, I don't have much to complain about with the original game. The 6 out of 10 also sort of represents that the patches are coming out slow. Every single patch has issues. They're like, what do they call that? Regressions, when they bring back bugs from previous patches. There's commonly regressions. I feel like there's no clear vision for where this project is going. And if it was up to me, I would recommend you only buy this when it's on sale. But here's the kicker, right? They never put Warcraft 3 into any of their sales on Battle.net. I don't know why they wouldn't do that. I think I've been thinking about that and I can't figure it out, but I think the only reason that they would do that is because they literally know it's a shit show, right? Because like, it would sell. If they put it to 50%, a lot of people would buy it, but maybe they just don't want the hassle of like loads of people refunding it because it's still an absolute mess, which is probably what would happen. So if you're looking for a polished experience for an RTS, and you're not invested in the Warcraft universe, then this probably isn't the game for you. If you are invested in Warcraft and you want to have a bit of enjoyment and you're willing to pay that $34.99 for a substandard product, then I guess Warcraft 3 is worth playing in 2023. I feel like it has come a bit of a way from its turbulent launch, but it does really feel like every one step forward, we're taking 2 steps backwards. We just recently got the automated tournament system, and the automated tournament system was brilliant back in the original game. It was right there on the front of the UI. Every time you logged in, you would see like, hey, there's a tournament happening at Friday at 5 o'clock. You would know about it. Now, like, you log in and it's buried away in some tournament UI that's very confusing and it's actually hard to find, and you don't know when the next tournament is and you can't see previous results. There's so many problems with the tournament UI. I could make a whole video on just like, this tournament UI is shit. Just roll it back to the 2002 UI because there was nothing wrong with it. But anyway, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Tournaments have been live now for like a month and I've not done a single one. And do you know what? I used to love the tournaments. Every time they're on my HUD, I would look at it and go, oh, there's a tournament tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Cool, if I'm on at 4, I'll join the tournament. So, yeah, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's hard to recommend this game. I'll still be playing it. If you're not ready to jump in, though, what you can do is you could watch some of my streams. I have a lot of Warcraft 3 ladder games on this channel, like probably to the tune of like 100, maybe 150 now. I try and stream the game like once a week, usually Friday nights if I have like child free time. So if you want to come and say hi and check it out, you could consider dropping a like on this video. You could also subscribe to me. There's a few other Warcraft 3 content creators out there that are still doing content, so I guess you could try and support them as well and watch them. But yeah, for me right now, it's super difficult to recommend Warcraft 3. If anyone at Blizzard ever did want to speak to, like, arguably one of the biggest fans of this game, and I could literally go through every single system and tell them why it's bad and what needs to be changed, I'm here. I think I put my email address on my About page on the YouTube channel. You can reach out anytime. Hell, I've reached out to Blizzard a million times. I guess they're such a big company now, they don't really listen to little guys. But anyway, thank you. If you got to the end of this video and you watched this whole video, I do really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here. I don't know what other future videos I'll have on this channel, but I'll have something. I'm not going anywhere. Thanks again. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.